For decades, the Intergalactic Battle Royale had been a macabre tradition, a spectacle of violence and cruelty where entire species sent their warriors to fight for survival. Some saw it as a sport, others as an opportunity for dominance. But for Earth, it had always been a source of shame. Humanity had no delusions of grandeur in the galaxy. Their role was clear the weakest. Every year, Earth was forced to send 10 tributes to this horrific tournament, and every year, those 10 were massacred. The world leaders, tired of watching their people die in the blood-soaked arenas, began sending criminals, death row inmates, and those with nothing left to lose. After all, it was better than seeing their finest soldiers slaughtered for the amusement of alien spectators. It became a running joke among the stars that the humans were little more than fodder, thrown to the wolves so the other races could revel in their own superiority. Earth was mocked relentlessly, and even the galactic councils refused to give humanity any significant say in intergalactic matters. Polls were created questioning whether humans should even be considered an intelligent species. But this year, Earth was tired. This year, things would be different. For the first time, they sent not criminals or outcasts, but their best soldiers. The decision was made in secret. The world's most elite military units, long separated by political borders and old conflicts, had come together in a rare moment of unity. They had one goal: to send Earth's finest soldiers to the Intergalactic Battle Royale and reclaim their dignity, once and for all. The 10 soldiers chosen were not merely elite, they were the pinnacle of human capability. Each had been carefully selected based on their experience in combat, their ability to survive in extreme conditions, and their mastery of psychological warfare. These were soldiers who had seen the worst humanity had to offer: wars, famine, and chaos, and had emerged stronger. The galaxy, however, remained unimpressed. To the alien spectators, humans were fragile, weak creatures, their technology laughable in comparison to the other species. As the soldiers were transported to the arena, an untamed jungle planet filled with deadly terrain and hostile creatures, alien commentators sneered. So, they've stopped sending prisoners and now send their pets. One Zaran warrior laughed, flexing his massive 6 limbs. The jungle planet was known for its dense, nearly impenetrable vegetation, hostile wildlife, and its oppressive humidity. Perfect conditions for an all-out bloodbath. Each alien race deployed their tributes, beasts in armor, creatures of immense strength, speed, or technology, confident that they would easily dispatch the humans. The humans, on the other hand, had no such illusions. They knew they were outmatched in strength and technology, but they had something no one expected: strategy. As the countdown began, the arena erupted into chaos. Alien species, each with their own distinct strategies, rushed to gain the upper hand. The Zarans, the most feared race in the competition, surged forward with brute force, their exoskeleton armor making them nearly impervious to traditional weapons. Towering over the others, their approach was one of sheer domination. They believed, as they always had, that strength was all that mattered in battle. The humans moved differently. They didn't engage in the reckless charges that had cost their predecessors their lives. Instead, they melted into the jungle. The alien spectators watching from above expected the same outcome as always: humans running, hiding, only to be hunted down and torn apart one by one. But this year was different. The first Zaran squad stormed into the dense jungle, following the faint heat signatures of the human soldiers. They thought they had them cornered when suddenly a bright flash lit up the jungle. The Zaran warriors roared in pain, clutching at their faces as their vision blurred, their senses overwhelmed by a stun grenade. It wasn't the kind of flashy, high-tech weaponry that aliens expected, but it was devastatingly effective. The Zarans, accustomed to relying on their advanced sight and hearing, were left vulnerable. And then came the silence. The first scream echoed through the jungle. One of the Zaran soldiers, covered in thick armor, collapsed, blood pouring from a wound that seemed impossible to inflict. Where had the humans gone? The jungle was too small for them to simply vanish, and yet they did. As the Zaran stumbled blindly, trying to reorient themselves, another scream followed, this time from one of their Oran allies. The Orin, who relied more on sound than sight, were faring no better. The jungle was alive with the echoes of human footsteps, whispers, and rustling leaves. But every time the Orin focused on the sounds, it was too late. They fell, one after another, without ever seeing their attackers. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were hunting. Hours passed. The battlefield that once echoed with the confident roars of alien warriors was now filled with a different kind of sound fear. The alien species, who had entered the arena believing themselves invincible, were now being systematically eliminated. The jungle, which had been their hunting ground, had become their tomb. The humans were employing tactics that none of the alien races had ever experienced. They used the terrain to their advantage, setting traps, creating distractions, and isolating the aliens one by one. Instead of meeting their enemies in direct combat, the humans attacked from the shadows, using psychological warfare to break their spirits. They didn't just kill, they dismantled their enemies' will to fight. Every time the aliens regrouped, trying to formulate a new strategy, something would happen. A stun grenade would detonate, blinding and deafening them. A sniper's bullet would pierce the skull of one of their commanders. A Zaran, once thought indestructible, would fall into a concealed pit, screaming as flames engulfed him. The humans were everywhere and nowhere at once. The alien medics who rushed to treat the wounded found themselves ambushed by unseen attackers. Each time the aliens tried to plan, the humans would strike, unraveling their unity, instilling panic in their ranks. The Galops, known for their ability to camouflage, fared no better. They had hidden in the trees, believing they could stalk the humans like prey. But the humans had anticipated this. Using thermal optics, they had picked off the Galops from a distance, killing them before they even realized they were being watched. As night fell, the alien soldiers could no longer sleep. Every attempt to rest was interrupted by explosions, gunfire, or the agonizing cries of their comrades. The humans were relentless, giving their enemies no time to recover, no time to think. Sleep deprivation took its toll, and soon, the once proud alien warriors were reduced to quivering wrecks, too afraid to even close their eyes. The human soldiers, despite their own injuries, kept moving. One had lost an arm in an earlier skirmish, another had fractured several ribs, but they did not stop. They were soldiers, trained for the worst conditions imaginable. Their enemies had never fought a war of attrition like this. They had never faced an enemy who could outlast them. As the hours dragged on, the alien forces were nearing total collapse. Their leaders were dead, their commanders had lost control, and their soldiers were wandering aimlessly through the jungle, terrified of every sound, every shadow. They had been reduced to prey, hunted by an enemy they had once dismissed as inferior. Desperation had set in. The Rons, known for their endurance and battle prowess, were the last to hold out. Their thick exoskeletons had protected them from the humans' bullets, but their minds were breaking. They had not eaten in days, had not slept in nearly 40 hours. Each time they tried to regroup, the humans would strike, keeping them in a perpetual state of panic. The alien medics had long since been killed, their efforts to save their comrades thwarted by the humans' precision strikes. The once unified alien force was now fractured, their warriors too frightened to fight, too exhausted to think. The humans had won, not just through combat, but through a relentless psychological assault. One by one, the alien soldiers fell. Some to human bullets, others to their own despair. 2 Rons, driven mad by the constant fear, had chosen to end their own lives, simply stopping their voluntary breathing. Another had been caught in a human trap, his leg crushed beneath a heavy boulder. He had begged for help, but his comrades were too afraid to go near him, fearing the humans would strike again. The last Ron warrior stood alone, his back against a mountain. In front of him stood the 9 surviving humans. They were covered in dirt and blood, their clothes torn from days of fighting, but they stood tall. Despite their injuries, despite the sheer exhaustion they must have felt, they showed no signs of weakness. The Ron warrior, trembling, raised his weapon, but he knew it was futile. His hands were shaking, his vision blurred by fatigue. The human soldier in front of him, a woman with a missing arm, stepped forward, raising her rifle. With a single word, she ended the battle. Bang! The Ron warrior collapsed, not from a bullet, but from sheer exhaustion. His mind, broken by days of psychological warfare, had finally given out. The humans had won. Word of humanity's victory spread quickly through the galaxy. For the first time in the history of the Intergalactic Battle Royale, Earth had not only survived but had emerged victorious. The other species, once so confident in their superiority, were forced to reckon with the reality that humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The galactic councils no longer mocked humanity. In every decision, every meeting, the humans were now given the respect they had been denied for so long. No longer would they be sidelined or ignored. Their enemies, once so quick to laugh at them, now looked away, unable to meet the eyes of those they had once ridiculed. The surviving human soldiers returned to Earth as heroes, but they knew the truth. Their victory had not come from physical strength or advanced technology. It had come from their ability to outthink and outlast their enemies. And from that day forward, humanity was no longer the weak, fragile species of the galaxy. They were predators, and the galaxy would never forget it. The battlefield was silent now. The once chaotic jungle, filled with explosions, gunfire, and screams, had become eerily still. The bodies of fallen alien warriors lay strewn across the terrain, their towering forms motionless among the trees. The humans, victorious, stood among the debris, their faces hardened by the days of fighting. The galactic spectators, watching from their ships in orbit, had fallen silent as well. There was no celebration, no applause, just stunned silence. For the first time in the history of the Battle Royale, the audience was forced to confront a reality they had long denied humanity was dangerous. On the surface, the 9 surviving human soldiers began to regroup. They had won, but it had come at a great cost. Each of them bore injuries that would have incapacitated any other species, yet they had fought through the pain. Corporal Ileana Marsh, the soldier who had lost her arm, stood with her team, her face grim. She scanned the horizon, ensuring that no enemies remained. They had been trained for this, prepared for every scenario, but now that the fighting was over, a new challenge loomed returning to Earth. Sergeant Daniel Reeve, the team's leader, approached Ileana, his face worn from the sleepless nights of battle. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "We did it," he said, though there was no triumph in his tone. Ileana nodded. "But at what cost? Half of us are barely standing." Reeve looked at the remaining soldiers. Some were bandaged, others limping, but all of them were still alive. "We'll recover," he said, his voice carrying the weight of responsibility. "But the galaxy won't forget what we've done here." As the humans began the process of evacuating from the planet, the enormity of their victory started to sink in. They had been underestimated for so long, reduced to fodder in the eyes of the galaxy, but now they had proven their worth. But what came next? Would the galaxy accept them? Or would this victory mark the beginning of a new kind of warfare, one where humanity would always have to look over its shoulder? Weeks later, the scene had shifted from the dense jungle planet to the Galactic Council Chamber, a towering structure floating in the void of space. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had gathered to discuss the aftermath of the Battle Royale and the implications of humanity's unexpected triumph. For centuries, the Galactic Council had been dominated by the strongest and most advanced species, those who had proven their superiority in combat and technology. Humanity had always been a footnote, a species that was tolerated but never taken seriously. But now, things had changed. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Rachel Kinsey, stood at the center of the council chamber, surrounded by representatives from dozens of alien species. The room was filled with murmurs, whispers of fear and confusion. The aliens had never imagined that humans could rise to such power, and now they were unsure how to proceed. Kinsey stood tall, her presence commanding the attention of the room. She had been briefed extensively on the events of the Battle Royale, and she knew exactly what was at stake. Humanity's place in the galaxy was about to be decided, and the outcome of this meeting would shape the future of Earth for generations to come. Ambassador Kinsey, a voice boomed from the council floor. It belonged to Chancellor Arvon, a towering, multi-limbed figure from the Zoran Collective, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Your people have disrupted the natural order of things. The Battle Royale was never intended for your kind to emerge victorious. Kinsey met his gaze without flinching. The Battle Royale was intended to test the strength and resolve of every species, she said, and humanity has passed that test. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Some alien representatives shouted in protest, while others remained silent, their expressions unreadable. The Zorans, known for their brute strength, were particularly vocal, their pride wounded by humanity's victory. We were not defeated by strength, Kinsey continued, raising her voice to be heard over the commotion. We were defeated by arrogance. You all believed that humanity was weak because we don't have your technology or your size. But what we have is far more dangerous. We have adaptability, we have strategy, and now you've seen what happens when we are pushed to our limits. Chancellor Arvon slammed one of his massive fists onto the podium. Do you expect us to simply accept your rise? Do you believe we will allow a species like yours to challenge the established order? Kinsey's eyes narrowed. We're not here to challenge you, we're here to ensure that humanity is given the respect we've earned. We don't want war, but we will not be silenced any longer. We've proven our worth, and now it's time for the galaxy to recognize it. There was a long, tense silence in the chamber. The alien representatives exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond. They had never considered humans to be a threat, but now that they had seen what humanity was capable of, they were forced to reconsider their views. Finally, one of the elder representatives, a tall, slender figure from the Thalassian Empire, spoke. Perhaps we have underestimated humanity, she said, her voice calm but measured. But the question remains, what do you seek, Ambassador Kinsey? What does humanity want from the Galactic Council? Kinsey took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been waiting for. We want what every species here has the right to be heard, the right to participate in decisions that affect the galaxy, and the right to defend ourselves without being treated like second-class citizens. Chancellor Arvon growled in disapproval, but before he could respond, another representative, a Krell warrior with deep scars across his face, spoke. The humans fought with honor, he said. They have earned their place. The council chamber erupted once again, but this time the voices were more divided. Some supported humanity's demands, while others remained steadfast in their opposition. The debate raged on for hours, with Kinsey and her delegation holding their ground against the most powerful species in the galaxy.